Hello, I'm just going to do a recipe here for Irish soda bread, and the recipe is the exact same for white or brown. Today I'm going to make brown. The only difference is when I put in the flour, I'm going to put in 2 cups of plain white flour, not raising flour or anything like that, just plain flour. And I'm going to put in 2 cups of brown wholemeal flour. If you just want white, put in 4 cups of plain flour. And if you want to make white fruit bread, put in 2 big handfuls of currants and raisins. So that's nice and simple. So the most important thing is to have everything ready before you start. And you need baking soda, or bicarbonate of soda sometimes it's called, not baking powder. Baking powder does not work, it has to be bicarbonate of soda. And you need just ordinary table salt. I've already made up 2 cups of milk, and how you get your measurements right is on your little jug here. All these Pyrex judges have the measurements in cups as well. So just play in 2 cups of milk, and I've put them in there prior because I've squeezed out some fresh lemon juice into that already. If you can get buttermilk, that's really good. That's the perfect thing to do for it. But if we use the lemon in it, it sort of does the same thing, but you have to leave it for 15 minutes to half an hour for the lemon juice to work with the milk. And you need that and the bicarbonate of soda to help the bread rise. Without those 2 things, it just won't work. So here we go. I'm going to tip in 2 cups, and I put a little bit too much in there, so I'll solve myself a little problem later on. I'll just put some of that into, I have a little trick that I do here to keep the loaf nice and round. I'll just use a frying pan instead of just putting it on a baking tray, because sometimes it doesn't stay round, it will go a bit funny shaped. And if you're OCD, you wouldn't want a funny shaped loaf, you want it nice and round. So you just sprinkle a bit of flour on the top of on that. I've put the oven on at 200 degrees and I've put it on 15 minutes ago. It's really, really important that you preheat the oven at least 10 to 15 minutes before you're going to put the stuff in. Okay, so I think I still might have a little bit much in there. I have, but it doesn't matter. What I'll do is I'll put in a little bit less brown. There has to be 4 cups altogether. So there's the 2 cups of white. Don't forget, if you're just making white, just put in another 2 cups. Okay, so that's just a little bit less there to compensate for that. So again, put that in there. I've already measured out a level teaspoonful of bicarbonate of soda. Put that in there. And I'm going to put in 1.5 spoons of salt. If I can get it to come out of the pot. When Jamie Oliver does this, this doesn't happen. There we go. So then you're just going to mix all that up. And at this point, there's 2 things you can do. You can have a spatula ready, or you can just use your hands. I did just wash my hands 2 minutes ago. So the easiest way is just turn it like that. And that's exactly when we put in the fluid, that's what I'll be doing. I'll be turning it like that just to get it all mixed up. Okay, so we're finished with that. We're finished with the salt, and we're finished with the lemons. So just going to make a little well in the middle, and I'm going to put in almost all the milk. Just hold back a little drop in case the mixture is too wet. You can add milk if it's too dry, but you can't take it out if it's too wet. So now I'm just going to put my hands in here, and I'm just starting to turn the mixture. If you don't want to get your fingers all messy, you can do it with this. But traditional way, the Irish mammies did it. And my Auntie Ina used to make the most incredible homemade brown bread. Only difference between me and her, she never had to measure anything. She never measured anything, it was always by sight. If I did that, it'd turn out like donuts. And the problem with this is it all sticks to your fingers and it's a right bloody mess. And we're definitely going to need more fluid, you see. A little bit more. When I'm finished this part, you'll see the consistency it should be. The idea of turning it in the bowl like this is you pick up any of the dry flour that's left on the sides and the bottom and all. You're picking it up all the time, so you're not going to have big lumps of flour left in the middle of the bread. And unlike regular bread, you're not kneading it, you're just mixing it up. And Irish soda bread is the easiest bread in the world to make, because you don't need yeast, you don't need to leave it to prove. That's a posh word that they use in bakeries. Now, do you see the way it is there? That's coming to the consistency we want. Okay, we're very nearly there now. We've nearly picked up all the flour off the sides, so it shouldn't be runny at all. I should be able to pick up nearly everything in that bowl in one go. Now you'll notice that I've only used one hand, and there is a very simple reason for that. Is because I need to put flour on the board here as well. And if I've got that stuff all over me, it'll be a right mess. It'll all be stuck in the other hand. So, put on plenty of flour, and there is a reason for doing this, which I'll show you now in a second, because it makes it easier to shape the bread as well. Okay, so now you've got your mix here, and you can see exactly the consistency it is. In fact, I'm going to put just a tiny drop more on you. Okay, we'll mix that in again. And you see how I'm not having to mix the whole thing, I'm just turning it like that, and everything goes in quite easily. Right, you see that now? It's not running off my hands, it's a lovely consistency. So if it's any wetter than that, it's not going to cook all the way through. And don't forget, we've got our oven at 200 degrees, and you're going to put the bread in the middle of the oven for 45 minutes. And after that 45 minutes, you're going to take it out, turn it upside down, tap the bottom, and there should be a sort of hollow sound, which I will show you later on. And you're going to then put it back in, upside down, back in the same frying pan. Or if you have a Pyrex dish, a 9-inch Pyrex dish, you can do it in that. And you just turn it upside down and put it in for another 5 minutes. So, right, you see that now? I am able to take everything out in one go. Okay, put it on there. Okay, another little secret for you: when you're finished and you want to wash everything, don't use hot water to wash your pots. Use cold water, because if you use hot water it just turns it to almost like cement and you can't get it off. So here we go, get as much onto the bread as you can there, like that, and just gently shape it. Okay, you're going to get a little bit of flour here, sprinkle that over the top, and the only reason I'm doing that is it makes it easier to work it. See, now it's not sticking in my hands. So remember, we've got the flour on the base and the flour on the top. So as I turn that now, and there's flour around the sides, bring that in, make it easier to turn it. Okay, every now and again, lift it and pick up a bit of that flour. There we go, and splash it all over your jeans. You just turn it like that. See the way that's turning? Perfect, okay? And it will, as you turn that, it's just going into the natural shape that you want, okay? Now, the most important thing of the whole loaf, if you don't do this, it will never cook through, and it won't taste the way it's supposed to, because you have to cut a really deep cross into the loaf, almost right down to the bottom. Go as deep as you can. And the reason for that is to let the fairies out. If you don't let the fairies out, it won't be right. So I'm just going to show you how deep I've cut that. See that? That's absolutely perfect. Then all you have to do is get it into the pan. Remember, flour, or you could grease it with a little bit of butter. Now here's the fun part, trying to get it into the pot. Now, there we are. That's what it should look like, with a nice big deep cut all the way through it. Okay, all done. Putting that into the oven now, middle of the oven. And do remember, if you're using a frying pan like that, when you go to take it out, don't go to lift it out by the handle unless you've got the cover. Sounds crazy. I've done it, burnt the hand off myself. Okay, so that is now in there for 45 minutes at 200 degrees, and I'll come back to you in a little while.